additional training that focuses on the musculoskeletal,
2 hours later.
Musculoskeletal, which is I'm going to just give you the quick rundown. So CASPer stands for What's up everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Emily. I'm creating this YouTube series called So You Want to Go to Medical School. This is part 8. I talk about different topics for pre-meds and anyone who's interested in learning more about the medical field and the process of becoming a physician. Before I start the video, please make sure that you subscribe below, click the button, click the bell icon to get notified for when my next video is released, and also follow my Instagram at emily.med, where I post useful pre-med information that accompany these videos. Let's get started with the video. Today's topics include what is the difference between a DO and an MD, what is the CASPer test during the medical admissions process, and just a few tips to keep in mind during this application season. So what is the difference between an MD and a DO? In the United States, there are two different schools of thought when it comes to medical training and practice. They are MD and DO. But first, let's go over the similarities between them. Both are fully licensed medical physicians. That comes with all the rights and privileges of being a doctor in the United States. They are able to practice in all 50 states, prescribe medication, treatment plans, etc. The difference lies in their school of thought. So, take traditional allopathic medical doctors, MDs. I have been told by multiple physicians, both MDs and DOs, MDs who use signs and symptoms to come up with a diagnosis and treatment. That's just the main school of thought when MDs were originally created. And DO stands for a Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine. What that really means is that their school of thought, their training is based on using the body's natural tendency to self-heal. They thought, why don't we work with the patient, and they dig a little bit deeper into the patient's life. They take in a lot of other factors into diagnosing and making treatment plans. DO school of thought is not the same as naturopathy. It's not, here's an herb to rub on your severed limb. It's just a different approach to handling patient treatment. Because during their training in medical school, they had an additional about 300 hours of osteopathic manipulative medicine, which is additional training that focuses on the musculoskeletal system. So a lot of the time, doctors of osteopathic medicine will partner with physical therapists and will work on injury prevention as well as just overall wellness as a whole for the patient. So for instance, if you do end up going to a DO physician to get, say, a checkup, you probably won't even know if they're a DO or MD, number one. But number two is that during the exam, they might be a little more touchy-feely. If you have some kind of issue, they might delve a little bit more into your lifestyle habits and personal life, just because they have this approach of treating the patient as a whole. This is not to say that MDs do not do this. There is a lot of merging going on, especially now, but those are the original principles of their school of thought. I have talked to a few DO residents and physicians, and day-to-day life in the hospital especially, they're not going to use their OMM training. They kind of said they threw it out the window once they even hit residency. I mean, they were on an emergency med rotation when I talked to them. And so the MD students will not receive this extra training. For you pre-meds out there, when you're applying to medical school, you might be considering, should I apply to DO schools and MD schools? So let's get into the education. A DO student is going to have the same fast-paced medical school curriculum as an MD. They have that additional 300 hours of OMM to learn about. Now, when it comes to your boards, there are certain standardized exams that you're going to take in medical school. For MD, traditional allopathic medical students, that's the USMLE STEP exams. Step 1 is the big exam that you take at the end of your second year if you're an MD student. This was just changed to pass-fail. So for my year, the class of 2024, I'm going to be the first cohort to experience this change in medical school curriculum. For DO students, the equivalent is called the COMLEX Level 1. This was not changed to pass-fail. Long story short, right now you can find doctors of osteopathic medicine, DOs, matching into every residency, but the distribution of what types of residency is not the same as MD. We can definitely agree on that. A lot of DOs tend to go into family medicine, internal, obstetrics and gynecology, and pediatrics. That's just the breakdown of where they tend to match. And so that's where the stigma comes in. Typically, the stats and numbers for DO school are a little more lenient than a traditional MD school. So this creates a vicious cycle. So some may think, oh, not as high caliber students go into DO schools. They did it because they couldn't get into MD schools, so therefore they don't match into the top residency specialties like MD students. So it's really difficult for a whole community to kind of dispel this stigma, because in reality, a lot of non-medical people don't even know that there is a distinction between a DO and an MD. Are you really looking at whether they have DO or MD after their name? Probably not, because you really care about if they're board certified, number one. You're going to get recommendations from other friends. You're going to go on the medical equivalent of Yelp, and their bedside manner, most importantly, and how they treat the patient. So that's really all I'm going to say. When I was applying to school, I was really considering DO, so that's why I felt comfortable talking about this topic, but of course I'm not an expert. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just putting that out there for pre-med students to kind of understand the decision you're making when you choose an MD or a DO school. In the end, I did choose to attend an MD school because I wasn't entirely sure of a specialty, but I was leaning towards surgery. And the school that I'm at now had a very good match rate in general, but also there were a lot of students who were matching into surgery and internal medicine, which you can kind of go a lot of places from there. I really did like the theory behind osteopathic manipulation medicine. I love the holistic approach, but that's not to say that MDs don't try to incorporate that into their treatment. The lines are really blurred nowadays in actual practice of medicine. Okay, let's talk about CASPer. You may have seen this somewhere along the way of your application process, but I'm going to just give you the quick rundown. So CASPer really stands for Computer-Based Assessment for Sampling Personal Characteristics. And so really it's a moral test online. It's a timed exam. You get different scenarios and spelling, grammar, syntax, that does not count in this exam. You get a little prompt, whether that's a scenario in a paragraph or a short video clip. You don't have to study for it. Basically, you just want to look up some of the sample prompts and really think about your own experiences and who you are morally as a person and what you would do in such scenarios. And from those stories, be able to concisely write in words the lessons that you learned. So for example, think of a time when you had to make a sacrifice in order to accomplish a goal. And then a few questions that might follow up this prompt are, briefly describe the situation and the sacrifice you made. Do you regret your decision to make the sacrifice? Why or why not? Did you learn anything from this situation that can be applied to your desired career? Explain your response. They have a grading system in which random people give you a score on, I guess, how moral you are. The answers that they're really looking for incorporate you not lying, cheating, stealing, or disobeying authority or rules. And lastly, just a few things to keep in mind during this application process. Number one, everyone's journey is different, so don't bother comparing yourself to others and what they're doing. You have no idea of what's actually going on with their application. Just know that you did and that you're doing all that you can do to help you succeed. Two is to be patient. Check out my video on post-secondary to-do list in terms of how to contact the school if you haven't heard back for a while, writing letters of interest or letter of intent. Adcoms are seriously busy right now, especially this 2020 cycle, so do be patient with hearing back from schools. But keep in mind deadlines and when you should be hearing back. Don't directly contact them until absolutely necessary. And lastly is to stay positive and really just enjoy the process. It is really grueling, but you put in so much work and you made it this far. Soon you'll be able to see your hard work pay off and it'll be totally worth it. If it does give you peace of mind, have a backup plan and walk through what your next steps would be if you happen to not get in this cycle. And that really concludes all the nitty-gritty details about applying to medical school. I know that this guide doesn't cover every topic of applying to medical school because when I started this series, I only wanted to talk about topics that I had personal experience in. Next week and the week after that's video, parts 9 and 10, are going to be more personal and have to do with my specific application process. And yeah, so that concludes part 8. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe below, and leave a comment. See you next time!